Kim and I are back together again, and we are answering your questions. We love to have in our Move Daily Hustle Facebook group. So if you're not a part of that group, we do encourage you to jump on into Facebook. It's just a wonderful place for people like us who do things like this. And the average age, I want to say, Kim, is like maybe 50, 55. That's probably the average age, but we have women basically from 40-ish to 75, really. Like there's a whole host of people there. And it's just a wonderful community if you're looking for people in the same mind frame as you who really want to work to optimize health, fitness, wellness, nutrition, and longevity. So jump in that group. That's Move Daily Hustle. You'll find that over in Facebook. And so Kim asked them a few weeks ago, what do you need to hear more of? What questions do you have, and what can we help you figure out? Because Kim, there's a lot of information on the internet, and not saying that we know it all, right? But we've been in the game for a long time, and we do read the research, and so we are sort of privy to what's working and maybe what's not working right now. And today we're going to answer some of your questions. So, Kim, welcome.
Thank you, Tracy. As always, it's so nice to be here with all of our amazing movers. Thrilled to have some incredible questions and a really nice variety today as well. We've got a really nice spectrum of things to talk about. So are we ready for the first one?
We are ready. Let's go.
Perfect. Right. I'm going to read off of here. So how do we really target visceral fat? I'm seeing improvements everywhere, but the belly. Will ab work help? There's so much conflicting information on calorie deficit, cortisol, and all these things in regards to visceral fat.
Yeah. Well, we know that ab work won't help, even though we want
Unfortunately.
it to. We want it to. But Kim, why don't you start with this one? Because this one, folks, honestly, really comes all down to your nutrition.
Absolutely, yes. And I think it's such an interesting point because certainly throughout this season, we do tend to have a redistribution of belly fat. And with all the talk about cortisol, as our mover has very rightly mentioned, there's a lot of confusing information out there. Now, much of it is the good old clickbait, where they're just trying to tempt you into doing something that perhaps is not necessarily right, or maybe the science isn't there. But essentially, when we're talking about visceral fat, we're talking about body fat loss. So that does definitely come back to our nutrition, and calories are queen. We know that in order to lose body fat, we must ensure we're in a calorie deficit, which of course you can calculate. And there are many nuances around that are very much down to the individual. And we have stacks of advice in the membership and in some of our programs around how to do that, not just initially, but more importantly, as you go on the journey. That coaching element is vital. What to do when things go wrong, if you hit a plateau, as this person may be talking about, how do you actually make more changes? There's an awful lot to it, but it is very straightforward. You need to know those calorie and energy needs, make sure you're in that consistent deficit.
Mhm. And visceral fat, for those who maybe don't really understand what that is the fat that's sort of deep in and around our organs. So this is an important thing to pay attention to, right? And you can do that waist to hip ratio to see if you indeed maybe are at risk for having more abdominal or visceral fat. That's different than subcutaneous fat. That's the fat that you can kind of pinch with your fingers, right? You can pinch that fat, but the visceral fat lays deep within the organs and around the organs. And that's what we want to avoid in terms of staying healthy with our heart, our lungs, our pancreas, like all of those organs that are really important to protect. So important to note that. And as Kim said too, cortisol can be something that we are very concerned about. And sometimes that low lying chronic stress can definitely heighten and increase our cortisol levels, which makes losing belly fat even more challenging. Another thing that can make it really challenging is when we don't get that adequate sleep. So really thinking about dialing in your sleep. In fact, Dr. Bill Campbell did a study on how much sleep impacts, or lack of sleep impacts, our ability to lose fat. And so if your sleep isn't dialed in, that's definitely one of the first places to start looking. And it's tough in menopause because a lot of people don't sleep, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the key points is that in this season of our life, it's so much harder to lose any body fat, whatever we're talking about with regards to our bodies and enabling us to see that change. So it does take consistency. It takes so much more time than we think. So many women we talk to give up, so to speak, before any progress is made, and they blame themselves. But actually, biologically, it just takes us way longer, especially when many of us are trying to lose just the belly, so to speak. We don't have 100 pounds to lose. Maybe it's just a few pounds that's really niggling at us, but it takes real time to make that last progress on the end. And many of the times we just don't have that patience.
It takes time, and there's a cost to it as well, right? Like, we've talked about this. Kim talks about this in our program, our Fat Loss Nutrition Masterclass, about the last 5 pounds and how challenging it is to lose that. What do you have to say about those last 5 pounds to people, Kim?
Yeah, so I think the last 5 pounds, really, whenever any of our women come to talk to us about this, my question is always, why do you want to lose the last 5 pounds? Is it coming from some kind of preconception about what you should weigh, what number should be on the scale? Is it from when you were young and that was the weight you always were, and therefore you're trying to get back to that? But quite often to hit that last 5 pounds takes a monumental effort. And for most of us, life is just too short. And there becomes a really informative, interesting, almost soul searching discussion around actually, you're doing great already. Let's go for a different goal. Let's maybe think about building muscle. Let's think about working on sleep, as Tracy said. Let's think about other things other than focusing on body fat. And ironically, in a lot of cases, that will help you to lose the last 5 pounds because actually the body recomposition happens. That can be great. But it's about knowing that you've done more than enough and you're more than good enough. So now let's look at something else. But if you do want to go for it, it is possible. It's just exceptionally hard. I did it once. I managed to lose, I think it took me 4 or 5 months to lose 3 pounds because I was already extremely lean. And I just thought, I'm just going to challenge myself. I'm going to see. I like testing things on myself before I can coach our ladies. And it was really hard. And at the end, I put it back on again because I was like, I cannot live in this much of a calorie deficit forever because life gets in the way of that. And actually, how much do you really want to compromise? So I think the real question about the last 5 pounds is why, and is it worth it to you? And if it is, great. If it's not, then maybe think about something else.
Actually, a really great thing for our listeners to hear, because I've actually only done it once as well. And that was back in 2010 when I competed. And it took me about 3 months as well to lose. I think I lost maybe 7 pounds. And I hated it. I hated every moment of it. It was so challenging to eat, so restricted. And as you said, I put it back on. I came back to a normal, healthy sort of set point for myself, but to get really low and to be really lean is not for everyone, for sure, right? Because it can also really mentally mess with you. That's what I found. Like when I was down there, you really like the feeling of being lean, the stomach was basically totally flat. Everything felt lean. My legs, for the first time in their whole lives, felt lean. And so in my brain, I'm like, I really like this feeling. I feel like I look good. And then when I've, carried a little bit more weight, sometimes the brain can go, well, now you don't look as good. Now you're not as good. And that really is work to get to a place where you are accepting and loving yourself and being kind to yourself and realistic with yourself, right?
Yeah, I agree completely. And one of the approaches I like to encourage our ladies to think about is rather than compare yourself to you 15, 20, even 10 years ago, instead imagine yourself in a room full of 99 women of the same age. Now, I'm willing to bet that for most of our movers and members, actually, they'd be in probably the top 10% if we're looking at health, strength, probably leanness in body as well. Comparing yourself to your peers is a much more realistic and accurate way to think about actually how well are you doing in your own journey, if you feel the need to compare at all. But we're in such different seasons biologically than in our different decades. And it's so easy to lose sight of that because we hark back to when we were in bikinis in our 20s and we could eat whatever we wanted and it was amazing. But biologically, we're very different, and that's not our fault. None of this is our fault. And what we're already doing in aiming to actually better our health and work on all these things, lifting weights, eating well, focusing on, creatine, focusing on sleep, focusing on what the things we know that are going to really spin that dial is actually where we make the wins. It's not about trying to be like we're in our 20s, but having that kind of image in your mind of actually you thinking about all your peers and where they are in their journeys. And it's not about judgment, but it's about just understanding how far you've come and what brilliant place you're already in and where's that reasoning behind pushing it further, because often there isn't a good one. And that can be a lovely relief to be able to move forward from that.
I think that's a great point. I know Stu Phillips, PhD, Dr. Stu Phillips, he talks about this a lot because I think in social media, we see what people are doing to optimize their body composition, their health, their wellness. And that is maybe like the top tier of people or the top, 10, 15% of people doing those things. And generally speaking, more than 70% of the world is not doing any of those things, right? Like the percentage is very high. So if you are moving daily, you're winning, folks. Okay. So just keep that in your brain.
Absolutely. All we need to do is move daily and everything else is good.
That's right. That's
Wonderful,
right.
Tracy. Okay, are we ready for our next question?
You bet.
Fantastic. Okay, so this one's supposed to be a question for me, but there is it's almost like a two-parter. So we've got a bit in there for both of us. So I have a question for Kim. How did you lose your weight? I've heard you talk about losing weight and resulting in loose skin. I too have a good amount of loose skin on my hips and thighs. Therefore, my second question is, have you found anything that helps the appearance of loose skin, like dry brushing, collagen supplements, etc.? So I will start with a very brief overview of my own journey. So I have gained and lost weight many times over the period of my life. Most notably, when I was growing up, I was a very overweight child. That's also my childhood trauma. And also, I had 3 babies in 5 years, and I gained, I'd say at least, let me try and do the maths, 60 to 70 pounds with each baby, and lost it afterwards using different methods. Now, one of the reasons I pride myself on my ability to coach our women so effectively is because I have done everything out there. I'm not one of these nutrition coaches or people in the industry who says, oh, yes, I lost all my weight and I've been perfect ever since. No, I've been up and down all over the place. I've tried every diet under the sun and realized that most of them didn't work, as we all do. And in the end, after my third child, George, who now is coming up on 8, I really just began to understand that actually it's boring, but the boring works. And I think this is the thing, is that we are all looking for that quick fix and everything else. And actually, the basic science is you eat in a calorie deficit, you train in a way that's effective, you get good sleep, you don't overtrain, which you all know I've been guilty of at one point or another, and you look after yourself with some good self-care, and you're patient and you're consistent. That is it. And to be honest, once I cracked that, I must say that I've been able to maintain my weight by and large ever since I had my third child. That's not without challenges, and certainly mental challenges, I think, are a massive part of being able to do that. But I tried everything, and the only thing that worked was the thing that I thought was too dull to actually be effective. But that was the thing that came through. And I think that that's one thing that I really value about what Tracy's always spoken about, and why I'm so proud to be part of our movement, quite literally, is that we don't try and fool anybody into some weird science and some weird fads. We're just very honest about the process. Yes, it's going to take time. Yes, the scale's going to go up and down, but actually you'll get to where you're going to go with the right support and with the right methods. But that's it. Like there's no snake oil, there's nothing else to it. But it's very rare that you find that out there. And I think I was very fortunate to get to the point where I kind of realized that. And that's partly where my journey with my own expanding of knowledge and my retraining and everything, and becoming the coach that I am today, and obviously working for Tracy, all came from. But yeah, I would say that don't look for the quick fix, I think, is my advice around fat loss. You have to be prepared to do the work, I think. And so many of us, in the nicest possible way, have so much stress and so many other accountabilities and faff in our life that we just want to grab the chips or grab the chocolate because it's quick, easy. In the moment, we don't care. But you kind of have to care if you want change. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result you always have. But that's difficult, and that's why it's challenging to lose body fat. But it's simple, but the mechanics of our brain make it really hard. But still, that's a small inroad, I guess, into my journey.
Mm-hmm. And did you hear what Kim said there? Basically, when things shifted for her is when she created a lifestyle of moving daily, when it became a way of existence for her, right? When she really thought, this is who I am, this is what I do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly, yearly, right? So it's thinking about your nutrition, not just when you're trying to lose weight for the cruise or for your 50th birthday or whatever the event might be. It's you're constantly having a mindset that you want to honor your body with the choices that you're making. Same with your exercise. It's every day we're waking up and thinking, how can I move my body daily to honor it the best way that I can? And And all of us really need to understand that we are not going to be in this for the long haul until you get that understanding that this has to be a lifestyle shift. This has to be a way of life for you. So both of us wake up in the morning thinking about how can I improve my well-being, right? What can I do to increase that wellness component? Because that is key. That is going to influence our ability to make better and wiser choices in our nutrition, our ability to motivate ourselves towards our fitness. Like that is very important. So don't negate focusing on your well-being, because that's got to be a really core piece. And Kim's done the work. She's done the therapy. She just spoke about having early childhood trauma that for many years kept her not at the body or the place that she wanted to be. But she's moving with that, working with that, moving through that, and coming out the other side and recognizing how beneficial taking a peek into Pandora's box really was for her well-being, and then ergo for her nutrition, her fitness, and creating this whole lifestyle. So if you're in a place where you're feeling stuck, make sure that you think about what it could look like for you to create a lifestyle of moving daily in your fitness, your wellness, and your nutrition, because that is what's going to move the needle toward better health for the long haul. It's got to be all of those elements.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, Tracy, everything you've always spoken about, and I love how your message has never changed, is that it is about the whole of our person. It's not just about, oh, how many calories can we sink to? How much movement can we do? You know, how much time do we have to devote to this? If any of you out there ever look at something and go, oh my goodness, this is going to be really hard, I can tough it out for 4 weeks or 3 weeks or 6 weeks, that is not a lifestyle approach. That is something that you're going to be miserable doing, and therefore you're not going to sustain it. It's one of the predominant reasons why, quote unquote, fad diets fail, because we don't enjoy them. You need to create a lifestyle approach that you enjoy. And sure, sometimes it's going to be hard. We all want to eat the cookies when we want to eat the cookies. Sometimes you're going to have to try and say no and have that grit and willpower, but you're still going to love almost all the process. And that means you're going to do it forever. Exactly as Tracy says, I found something that I loved enough that it became part of me. Like, my children don't know me not exercising. They don't know me not eating
Same.
well, because that's who I've become. And I love it.
Yes.
Like, I celebrate it.
Yes.
But if
Yes.
I hadn't have found that and discovered actually this is the holistic approach to it, this is how we do it, I would have just been lost trying all these different things and never getting anywhere. And
I think one of the things that is so important too as people journey through is a lot of people don't have support in their family, right? They don't have a community support. And also maybe their environment is not such that is going to allow them to thrive as they change their lifestyle. So think about those things, people, because that's very important in terms of support, camaraderie, information, knowledge, education. Like all of those things are important, which is why, joining even our free Facebook group, Move Daily Hustle, is a great place to be. Joining online communities can be very beneficial in your journey forward. And of course, we also have our membership and different places where we can really guide and lead you. But find those communities because they can be super helpful. And it's what you see the most of in your feed is going to inspire you, right? If you're constantly looking at, just cookie videos or animal videos, which I have both of those in my feed as well, but without any good fitness education, why would you be inspired, right? You'll be inspired more to pet dogs and eat cookies. So really curating an environment that is going to benefit you, I think is really important. All right, let's move on to the next question, Kim.
brilliant. Okay, so we had the second part of that question, which was all
Oh,
about
right.
loose skin. So I definitely have loose skin, and this mover very kindly mentioned that, which is great because I have spoken about it. So loose skin to me is kind of twofold. So you've got the part where you can potentially make some small inroads into it, but we would be fooling anybody if we said you can fix it completely. I don't believe that's possible, but there are things you can do. But then there's also a little bit of body acceptance that comes in there. And I know that this is a little bit, I don't say woo-woo, but it also is a little bit, but it's also not. like we are getting older. Again, we would be foolish to say that we can stop that process happening. And if you certainly have gone through a period where you've lost a lot of body fat, like I did, and obviously my pregnancies, loose skin is a huge deal. Like I have plenty of it. Now, have I done much about it? Really, the only thing that worked for me was the dry body brushing. I found that to be quite effective, and also working on my muscle definition in the certain areas, which I know Tracy will talk about, I'm sure. But what I would say is that I've learned to love the parts that I love more than the parts of the loose skin. So I love my shoulders. Everybody knows that. I don't necessarily love underneath my arms where I do have some loose skin, and I don't really love my stomach where if I lean forward, my skin touches the ground before I do when I can push up. So I don't love that part, but I can show off my shoulders. You know, I can show off, I don't mind my ankles and everything else. And, you know, I've got some good biceps, that kind of thing. I will show off the parts that I want to, and I will accept the bits that I don't, and not feel bad about wanting to conceal those, because that helps me be more confident. So I think it really is that balance. There are some things you can do, but we do have to be realistic about where we are. But Tracy, what about building some muscle underneath that loose skin?
Yeah, I think we hear about this all the time, people wanting to fix their loose skin. I mean, I have it too, folks, and I've never been overweight, but age makes everything looser, right? Like we lose elasticity. What are you going to do? Nothing. Accept it. That for me, that's a big part of it, because I know I look down, I've got creepy legs, creepy arm, whatever. Okay, yes, it's going to happen. But as Kim said, what can you do to improve your body composition? And we can definitely build muscle. It is never too late to do that. You're never too old to build muscle. And as you increase lean muscle tissue, you know, you're going to see that more. You're going to see that sculpted look that a lot of us are going for. Of course, if you really want to see the sculpted muscles, we carry a bit of a lower percentage of body fat. So if you increase muscle, but you don't reduce your body fat percentage, everything might look a little bit bigger. But in terms of loose skin, I think having muscles that pop, because we have lean muscle mass there, can be something that you know, shows a little bit differently anyway. But as Kim said, I think acceptance and moving to a place where you're going, okay, this is how everyone who is 55 or 65 is looking. So, you know, let's move in part towards acceptance and love, and focus on something else that we have control of.
Okay, let's go to our next question. So I love this one. How do I get off a plateau? I lose weight quickly when I start, and then I hit a wall where I can't seem to lose any more significant weight. Boy, is this one we hear a lot about.
Yeah, and part of it is losing weight quickly. You know, like I think we all want to do that. If you're on a weight loss journey, you want to lose quickly. But always remember that what you have to do in order to get fast weight loss, is it sustainable for the long haul? And generally speaking, it's not. And so you get to a goal weight, and then you go back to what you were doing that felt, you know, easier. And so we often go from our, you know, weight loss to a plateau, or we even gain it back. So I think thinking about that really mindfully, and taking your approach to fat loss or weight loss a little slower is really important. But yeah, what do you think, Kim?
Yes, I think it's an excellent question, because many of us do hit that point where actually what we were doing even a few weeks ago no longer seems to be working. And one of the points I think that many women unfortunately miss is that as we reduce in size, as in our bodies get smaller and we weigh less, we need less calories. So recalculating those calories when you get to certain points is really useful. So you can bring all your numbers down slightly, and that way you continue to be within a deficit. And also, although it's slightly less relevant given the timescales, it's important to remember that as we age, we also need less calories. So what you might have dieted on before, perhaps in your 20s or 30s, may now be very different when you're perhaps in your 40s, 50s, or 60s. So again, it's about knowing the numbers as you are today in your current situation, and making sure you're paying real attention to that. And I also think as well that one of the biggest challenges we fall on is that we get bored, and actually tracking and all this other stuff just gets really tedious, and we start to sneak more things in, and we think we're still in deficit because we're still tracking, but oh well, maybe we had half a glass of wine, maybe we had some, you know, some chips off our grandchild's plate, you know, who knows what that may be. But that dieting fatigue, as we call it, can really begin to kick in, and we just sort of lose the motivation, and we're a bit like, no. And then as we go along, it turns out we're actually eating more than we think we are, and we're just like, well, why is it not working? Well, because we've lost that drive, that initial, challenge that we feel, where we're just super motivated to be really on point, or on point falls off and we think it's just not working. But actually going back and rechecking your adherence could be another way to really pull it in and then perhaps get back on track.
Yeah, so when things aren't working anymore, those are the things that you want to check, right? So maybe you have been losing weight and then all of a sudden you do plateau. Then it's time to go back, as Kim said, recalculate your calorie needs. And so often we undercalculate the amount of calories that we're consuming and we overcalculate the amount of energy that we're expending. So if you're using something like the Harris-Benedict calculator, which allows you to input your energy expenditure, and maybe you have it at, I exercise 4 to 5 times intensely hard, every week. It will allot you more calories to consume because of that. But maybe you're not really doing that, or maybe you missed a few workouts recently, or maybe your training isn't as intense as it once was. So, really take a look at that and maybe drop that down to 2 to 3 times a week instead, which is going to lower your calorie allotment for the day, and test that out as well. So those are some of the things to definitely take a look at there.
I think so. And I think that one of the key points, as we've both been talking, Tracy, is that there's a degree of honesty with yourself that comes into this. You kind of have to go, okay, maybe I've not been adherent. Maybe I haven't been working out as hard. Maybe that's out of your control. Perhaps you've been sick. Perhaps you've been caring for aged parents. All sorts of things can get in the way. But if you're not honest about what you're actually doing, you're never going to get anywhere. So there is a little bit of holding that mirror up to yourself and going, okay, I've kind of fallen off here, here, and here. Let me get back on, give it a few more weeks and see what happens. I think that can be a really good thing to consider as well. Okay, Tracy, let's go on to our last question. So again, a really different topic. Our mover has asked, I would like some information on progression. How can you progress with weights if you work out at home, but either because of space or cost, you can only have dumbbells up to a certain weight?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because if you are working out at home, exactly, how do you make it more challenging for yourself? Because progressive overload is what's important for muscle growth, right? Like, we need to have volume, we need to have effort, right? And we need to have mechanical tension. So all of those things are really important for muscle growth. And she asked a great question, because I think a lot of us have limited space. We have maybe limited funds. We have limited access to equipment. So a couple of things that you can do to make it more challenging is switch up maybe the way that you're training. So even having a step, and your body weight can add more tension than maybe just holding weights in your hands. So for an example, maybe you want to train your glutes and you're used to doing, a squat, for an example, holding your 15-pound dumbbells. Maybe that's the max that you have. Well, now you could have a step or a stair or a bench or a chair, something stable, hold those same 15-pound dumbbells, dip low and step up. Now the glute is going to be activated the same as in a squat, but now you've added your whole body weight to the equation, as well as the 15-pound dumbbells. So that's a way to do it, right? Is to add height. Okay. We can also definitely add tempo or change the tempo. So mechanical tension is the time spent on the muscle, right? So the lengthening of the muscle, the contraction of the muscle, and that pulling on the muscle. So if you do something, let's say like a static lunge, so you're in a lunge position, up and down in that lunge. If you go slower on the down phase or the eccentric phase, keeping more tension and more time on the muscle, it's going to be overloaded differently than if you did a 1-to-1 count up and down. So that's another way that you can definitely add more mechanical tension onto the muscle, is that slow eccentric phase. And in fact, Dr. Charles Poliquin, he's passed now, but he was a strength physiologist. And basically that was one of the ways that he said the muscle can get stronger, is really focusing on the eccentric phase of an exercise. So super slow on the down. And why is that beneficial? Because you're keeping the tension or the weight amount on the muscle longer. So more muscle fibers are going to recruit. So those are a couple ways that you can overload the muscle, increasing your reps. So say again, you only have maybe 10-pound dumbbells and you're doing a shoulder press. And maybe the workout says you need to do 3 sets of 12 reps. But at 12 reps, you're like, I have a lot more in the tank. I could do this about 6 more times and not fatigue yet. So then your whole rep range is going to be higher, because the goal for increasing lean muscle tissue is to push yourself toward that failure point. Okay, so you can do that with lighter weights. You can do that with heavier weights. With heavier weights, of course, your rep range is going to be lower, right? So if I'm doing a shoulder press and I have 20-pound dumbbells, I might only be able to press that overhead 5 times. Great. If I'm pushing towards failure or fatigue for myself, right? This is a very independent individual, then I'm going to grow muscle. If I pick up 10-pound dumbbells and I do 6 reps, but I don't fatigue at all, there's no failure point, I'm not pushing toward that 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 on a rate of perceived exertion, there's no growth. So if I have 10-pound dumbbells, then I definitely want to increase the rep amount. So then I'll go up to 10 reps, 11 reps, 12 reps. Am I at fatigue yet? Nope, not yet. Got to keep pushing. 13, 14, 15. Oh, I can barely do 15, but I did it with good form. There, now I'm at it. So thinking about that rate of perceived exertion is really important as well, right? There's a scale, and you can Google this, just go rate of perceived exertion, and it's going to give you the scale rating on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 to 4 is basically very simple, right? It's like I'm holding a pencil doing it. Whereas what we want to do is when we come to our workout, we want to hit at least that 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 on a rate of perceived exertion, which means it's very hard. We have maybe 2 reps left in the tank, maybe 1 rep left in the tank. And then 10 out of 10, of course, is right to failure. I wouldn't suggest going up to failure every workout, right? That's a little bit harder on the body, harder on the joints, ligaments, muscles. Recovery time needs to be a little bit longer if we train that way. But you can still get amazing and similar adaptations, leaving at least 1 to 2 reps in the tank. So think about that. I just did a coaching call with our members about this yesterday. Think about each time you do a set, where was I on a rate of perceived exertion? Was I at a 6? That means I have about 6 reps left in the tank. So that's not going to build muscle. So if you have lighter weights, then again, you might not be able to follow a workout protocol like what I do on my channel, and expect to get results. You might have to say, okay, she did 12 reps with that weight amount, but she has heavier weights. I only have light weights, so I have to do 15 reps, right? So you might have to just pause the video or do your own structured workouts where you're really, pushing the muscle toward that fatigue point. So that is crucial for muscle growth. If that is your target, if you're just like, I just want to move my body and get some blood flow, great. Then lighter weights are fine. But for a lot of us, we do home workouts. And I've been working out at home for the better part of 7 years. I haven't gone to a gym. And Kim and I both, and we build muscle. But we've also increased our kit, right? Our dumbbells, our equipment over time. I know it's expensive, but over time you can, get it. Oh, don't we see members all the time getting like 25-pound dumbbells for Christmas from their husband? It's cute. Everyone gets so excited when they get their new dumbbells. Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely. And I must admit, I think working out at home is such a gift if you have a busy life, and that is one of the massive advantages to it. But yes, it does have its limitations. 2 pieces of kit I wanted to mention that I found incredibly useful is a yoga block. So they're very inexpensive, they're very small. And for things like lunges, if you lunge on it, you can get an increased depth because your front foot is a little bit elevated. Things like that, they can be really useful. And also, as strange as it sounds, and obviously form and safety in mind, I have ankle weights that I put on my wrists.
Yeah.
So if I'm, for example, doing a chest press and I could just do with a few more pounds on it, I will put those on with my heaviest weights that I have at home. And I will use those. And it just gives that extra bit of push, that extra bit of weight to carry. So again, I think it's about being creative, absolutely with safety in mind, and just thinking, actually, what can I do to just tweak this up a little bit? But yeah, I think the basic advice around the volume and everything else is spot on, and also means it's very accessible for everyone. We don't have to go to gym if we can't do that. We can still get great results at home.
As we finish this podcast, I want to ask Kim to share a little bit about our brand new nutrition masterclass that we've just created. So, Kim, why don't you share with our audience what that masterclass is all about?
I will absolutely thank you, Tracy, for the opportunity. So yes, we have created a first ever for Move Daily, which is a fat loss nutrition masterclass. Now, this is essentially a huge reference guide that we have tried to pack everything in that you would ever possibly need on your fat loss journey and beyond. It's taken months to write because we wanted to make it the best version of itself that we could possibly do. And it's not specific to any age group. We have made it for grown-up women. We've made it where there's no fuss in there. It's all very straightforward, very easy for anyone to implement. But what I love about it, and the bit that I know that we're one of most proud of, is the fact that we have the science, yes, because the science is crucial. Without that, we wouldn't achieve results. But the majority of it is all around the mental challenge of losing body fat. We cover everything from eating at weekends to actually a plateau, just like the question we've had here. That last 5 pounds, what do you do when you get to maintenance? Social eating, physiological hunger when you're not actually hungry, but you think you are, and you just want to eat. How do we get around all of this? Everything is in there. And we've even included some basic meal plans as well, shopping lists, recipes. So you can use those as a guide to set up your own way of eating. But it's like a book. We basically wrote a
It's
book
like a
on how
book,
to
yeah.
lose that. But the
Book.
best thing is that there's no fuss in it. It is just science and great coaching and a real sort of camaraderie of our experience around actually coaching literally hundreds of women and translating what they really care about when it comes to losing body fat and looking at the challenges and go, right, how do we help them? And we've set it all out. So I think I'm very proud of it, and I know Tracy is too. And I think that in itself speaks to it, because I know that Tracy does not put her name behind anything that she does not believe in wholeheartedly. And I think it's wonderful to be able to give this to women who are really struggling. So it's fantastic that we've got it to add in. And yeah, excited for any feedback. For anybody who does do it, please let us know what you think. We'd love to hear.
Yeah, it's a course format, so you can log on through our Kajabi platform, and it reads like a course. So you're doing some, you're doing some work yourself, writing things out, getting your plan in place, and then reaching your goals, which is the key. All right, folks, thanks for joining today. As always, go move daily in your fitness, wellness, and nutrition. Kim, thanks for joining me again. We'll see you again in another one of these for sure.
Wonderful. Bye, everybody. Speak to you soon.
All right, and have a great day, everyone.